full moon, sleepwalking. What I'm about to tell you happened to a coroner named Dr. Edmund Moores. This story comes from his personal diary entries, found after his mysterious death 3 years ago. The authorities ruled it a heart attack, but after you hear what I'm about to tell you, you might think otherwise.
Dr. Moores had been working at the Accident County Morgue for over 20 years. He'd seen everything. Car accidents, murders, overdoses. Nothing fazed him anymore. At least, that's what he thought.
It started in July of 2024. An elderly woman named Eleanor Hastings was brought in. 73 years old, died in her sleep from cardiac arrest. Pretty routine, except for one thing that bothered Dr. Moores. Her fingernails were packed with dirt. Fresh, wet dirt. Now, this woman was found dead in her bed, in her locked apartment. The funeral director swore she hadn't been moved from her bedroom until they picked up the body. So, how did she get dirt under her nails?
Dr. Moores figured it was just contamination during transport. He cleaned her up and didn't think about it again.
But then, it happened again.
2 weeks later, another elderly person, same thing, died in their sleep, found in bed, doors locked, and again, dirt under the fingernails. But this time, Dr. Moores noticed something else. The bottoms of the feet were dirty too, covered in what looked like cemetery soil.
By September, it had happened 7 times. Always elderly people, always found dead in their beds, always during a full moon, and always with dirt under their nails and mud on their feet. Dr. Moores started keeping detailed notes. He analyzed the dirt. It wasn't just any soil. Lab tests showed it came from different graves in local cemeteries, some from plots that were decades old. On October 13th, everything changed.
Dr. Moores was working late when the motion sensors in the morgue went off at 2:30 a.m. He checked the security cameras. Nothing. Just empty hallways. But when he went to investigate, he found something that made his blood run cold.
Drawer 7C was standing wide open. Eleanor Hastings's drawer.
Empty.
There were wet footprints leading from the open drawer to the loading dock. Muddy prints that disappeared into the night. Against every instinct telling him to call security, Dr. Moores followed them. The trail led through the empty streets, weaving between houses with the shambling, uncertain pattern of someone not fully awake, not fully conscious. The footprints ended at Greenvale Cemetery.
Under the full moon, Dr. Moores saw something that would haunt him for the rest of his very short life.
7 figures were moving between the headstones, all elderly, all wearing burial gowns that fluttered in the wind like dead skin. They walked with jerky, puppet-like movements, their arms hanging limp at their sides. Eleanor Hastings was among them. They formed a perfect circle around a freshly dug grave, a burial that was scheduled for the next morning. And then, they started digging. With their bare hands, their fingernails split and tore as they clawed at the wet earth. But they didn't stop. They didn't make a sound. When they reached the casket 6 feet down, all 7 of them turned and looked directly at Dr. Moores. Their eyes reflected the moonlight like mirrors, like they weren't human anymore. But Dr. Moores couldn't move. He was frozen, completely paralyzed in place. He couldn't scream. He couldn't even breathe. But his heart was pounding so loud in his chest that the sound seemed to be awakening other long-term residents of the cemetery. Eleanor Hastings was among them. She opened her mouth, and what came out made Dr. Moore's blood turn to ice. It was something ancient, something that seemed to rise from the earth itself.
The deep ones are calling. The harvest moon rises. Join us, Doctor.
And then Dr. Moores recognized the voice. It was his best friend's grandmother, the woman who used to bake cookies for him when he was just a kid, visiting his friend's house.
She began walking toward him. Eleanor Hastings, who had needed a walker in her final days, was now moving faster than she ever had in life. No walker, no hesitation, just purposeful, terrifying movement.
Dr. Moores tried to run, but his legs gave out. He fell hard to the ground and still couldn't move, couldn't crawl, couldn't even whisper for help. Eleanor leaned down close to his face, and in that familiar voice that had once comforted him, she said, "Today, the moon turned gibbous, so you will be excused to finish your duties at the morgue." She reached down and rubbed some of the grave dirt onto Dr. Moore's work shoes. Suddenly, he could move again. He stood up and screamed, "Please let me go." Dr. Moores ran. When he returned at dawn with the police, all 7 bodies were back in their morgue drawers, positioned exactly as he'd left them. The cemetery showed no signs of disturbance. The scheduled burial went ahead without any problems, but the dirt under their fingernails told a different story. Lab analysis confirmed it came from 7 different graves, some dating back 50 years. Dr. Moore spent the next 3 days researching lunar cycles and death records. The pattern was undeniable. For over a year, people had been dying during full moons and then walking. His final diary entry was found on his desk. It ended with these words: "Mrs. Hastings died exactly 1 month ago, the night of the last full moon. She's been walking for 30 days. God help us all. How many others are out there in the darkness, answering a call we cannot hear?"
Dr. Edmund Moores was found dead in his office 3 days later. Heart failure, they said. His funeral was held during the new moon.
The morgue's night shift reported no unusual incidents that month. But here's the thing that should keep you awake tonight. 3 months after Dr. Moores died, cemetery groundskeepers in 3 different counties started reporting the same thing. Fresh holes appearing overnight during full moons. Holes that were always filled back in by morning. Holes that were always 6 feet deep. And sometimes, just sometimes, the graves they found disturbed were empty. But that's not even the worst part. One security officer at the cemetery quit his job after just 2 weeks. He claimed he kept seeing Dr. Moores walking the grounds at 3 a.m., mumbling the same thing over and over. "Where are my coworkers? Where are my coworkers?" The cemetery groundskeepers started noticing something else too. Every morning after a full moon, they would find the same thing on Dr. Moore's grave: a bottle of cognac and a single red rose. Every single time. But here's what really should terrify you. Dr. Moore's had been buried for months. His grave was 6 feet underground. So who was leaving those offerings?
And why?
Sleep well tonight. And whatever you do, absolutely no cognac at 3 a.m.
Trust me on that one.
Sweet dreams. Turn on the alarm. Yes, notifications. You never know when the next full moon walking will occur with Dr. Moore's in your neck of the woods. Subscribe and join our anonymous awake at 3 a.m. listening to true horror stories.